initiative for silencing the guns. In between these two, he has played major roles in Ghana, in West Africa, and globally. He's been a member of Parliament and the Deputy Minister of Education. He's been the Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific State of Countries in Europe. He's been the Executive Secretary of ECOWAS. He's been the Special Representative for the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, and head of the joint UN-AU peacekeeping mission in Darfur. We're very grateful that he agreed to be co-patron of Focus Africa, and I would now like to invite him to address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my dear brother Adote, for the warm words of welcome. I continue to get my guidance from all of this from our brother Adote, and I think our guest in particular will know his passion for cooperatives in general, particularly the efforts to try and promote cooperation right there. So let me start on the existing protocol. It's with great pleasure that I welcome you to this first day of Cooperation Africa's 3-day conference on cooperatives in Africa on the theme Building, which was celebrated only in 2012. So that we have 2 international years of cooperatives, almost within a decade of each other. This is an indication of the importance attached to cooperatives by many in the global community. Indeed, cooperatives are unique in their structure and purpose. They bring people together to pool resources, share risk, and collectively benefit from the fruits of their labor. Be it in agriculture, finance, housing, or services, cooperatives have enabled millions of Africans to access markets, secure livelihoods, and improve their quality of life. They embody the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are. This conference will be taking a panoramic view of cooperatives in Africa, as declared by the United Nations. We shall hear presentations on the past, present, and future of cooperatives on our continent. I have no doubt that much will be learned over the next 3 days to motivate and enable Africa and to create the kind of enabling environment that cooperatives need to move forward as they seek to build a dynamic and productive cooperative sector. Across our diverse continent, cooperatives are proving to be critical engines of social cohesion and community resilience. Of the role that cooperatives might play in our development. In other words, while we recognize private and state enterprises, we appear not to see so clearly the possibilities and benefits of collective enterprise. Fortunately, it comes at a time when African countries are taking major steps forward in organizing their cooperative. Just last year, 2024, the Pan-African Parliament, an institution comprising representatives from all African parliaments, passed a cooperative law for the continent, which would allow cooperatives of all types to grow and develop within an environment approved and adopted by the heads of state of the African Union. earlier this year, that is at their February 2025 summit. Each country now has the opportunity to domesticate the model law, taking into account the views of its local cooperative stakeholders as they conduct the process. This is significant for cooperatives because kinds of cooperatives cater for the needs of different sections of the society. For instance, farmers can join procurement cooperatives to buy their inputs at the lowest possible prices. Alternatively, they can establish marketing cooperatives through which they sell their produce at prices that are remunerative. Farmers with an opportunity to achieve a two-sided benefit from being members of cooperatives. Similarly, consumers may improve their situation in three possible ways. First, they can form credit unions or SACCOs, as they are generally known in Africa, to access relatively affordable loans as and when they need them. They can also form housing associations through which they can become owners of their own flats or houses at lower prices than would be the case if they sought to purchase individually. Finally, they can become members of a retail cooperative, which will then buy high-quality groceries in bulk at affordable prices and pass on the savings to their members. While credit unions are quite common in Africa, other forms of consumer cooperatives are relatively far between. There is, therefore, the need for the development of both retail cooperatives and housing associations on the continent, as this would certainly make living less taxing for consumers, especially those in the idle classes. For members of the communities who work in the work, but they usually do not have any seats on the board. In some other places, workers have a seat at the board, but they do not have any shares or similar financial incentives. Those workers who establish their own worker cooperatives are both because they hold the owners and the workers of the businesses in which they work. But perhaps most importantly, being a member of a worker cooperative allows those people to create their own employment rather than waiting to be employed by government or private sector. This ability to generate self-employment is perhaps one of the most important contributions that workers' cooperatives can make to our African economies. Encouraging young people to form and join their own worker cooperatives and thereby secure their own livelihoods can help African societies to create and deploy an important tool to help tackle the youth unemployment problem that we face. The model law, if fully domesticated and operationalized by member states, would certainly make it easier for young men and women to build strong worker cooperatives. Among others, 1, establish clear, consistent, and cooperative-friendly policies that foster transparency, accountability, and good governance. 2, ensure access to finance through financial institutions by developing tailored products for cooperatives, while governments and development partners offer guarantees and seed funding to de-risk cooperative ventures. 3, ensure continuous training in leadership, business management, digital skills, and value addition, which are essential to build resilient and innovative cooperatives. And finally, 4, supporting cooperative products through local procurement policies, trade fairs, and digital platforms to expand market reach and drive competitiveness. To conclude, I should emphasize that with regards to Ghana, the stated vision of government contained in Ghana's flagship policy on agriculture, the Feed Ghana program, and also recently articulated in the budget statement of Thursday, November 13, 2025, we give agriculture, the time is opportune to support agricultural cooperatives to enhance production, storage, processing, distribution, indeed, along the entire value chain. That surely would be a pathway to boosting agricultural employment, rural agricultural employment and productivity, providing the opportunity for young people to create their own gainful employment is a veritable pathway to silencing the guns in Africa and building a peaceful, prosperous, and secured Africa within the broader framework of the African Union's Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. I look forward to a rewarding 3 days of knowledge sharing and reflections. I join in welcoming you very warmly to our country, Akwaba, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Okay, can I please now call on
Officer Babu, we are from the Department of Cooperatives. And let me take this opportunity to bring you greetings from the leadership of the Department of Cooperatives. The registrar and his deputy are equally busy at another occasion. So I am here representing myself as a regional director and also representing the registrar and his deputy. She gave me some few words to share, and so without wasting my time, it is a pleasure to be here this morning and also to join you at this important international hybrid conference that reflects on the origins, changes, and current footprints of cooperatives, an enduring movement that continues to empower communities, transform livelihoods, and foster inclusion, development across Africa and beyond. Today, as we gather under the theme, Building Strong Africa, from their humble beginnings, rooted in self-help and mutual trust, cooperatives have evolved into a powerful model for social and economic transformation in our continent. They have supported smallholder farmers, empowered women and youth, and expanded access to finance through savings and credit societies. But as the world changes with digital transformation, globalization, and climate change, we reshaping our communities, our cooperatives. Our responsibility is to create and sustain an enabling environment, one that balances oversight with empowerment. We must ensure that cooperative laws and policies are modern, inclusive, and responsive to emerging trends. Society operates under sound governance structures that protect members' interests, and promote financial sustainability. We must also ensure to embrace digitalization in cooperative management, record keeping, and members' engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, as regulators, we are also to ensure to promote capacity building, especially for women and youth, so the next generation can drive the cooperative agenda forward. Regulation must not be seen as barrier, but partner in progress, ensuring that cooperatives remain credible, competitive, and community-driven. Challenges and opportunities. Indeed, cooperatives across Africa faces challenges, from weak governance structures and limited access to finance, to market volatility and the lingering effects of global crisis. However, these challenges also present opportunities to innovate through technology, to collaborate through regional networks and federation, and to align with continental frameworks such as African Union Agenda 2063, which envisions an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens. A call to action. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on the origins of cooperative movement and its current footprints, let us also look into the future, where cooperatives are at the heart of sustainable economic growth. Let us strengthen partnership between regulators, academia, and cooperative movement, encourage innovation and entrepreneurship within the cooperative model. And most importantly, may this conference inspire collaboration, innovation, and action. Thank you all very much for your kind attention.
Okay. And now, may I call on Mr. Edward Hoffman, who is the Board Treasurer of the Ghana Cooperative Council.
Once again, I say good morning to all of you. Whether is a member of any of the cooperatives, because he touched on all the sectors of the cooperative, and you could see that the man knows what he's talking about. But I'm so happy about one of the principles of cooperative that we have kept on the shelves and we have not been using, and that is the principle of cooperation among cooperatives. And he touched on that principle, and I said to myself, if we can have a song that all cooperatives will be singing anytime they meet about the cooperation among cooperatives, cooperative can survive anywhere in the world without any support. Unfortunately, we have left that principle. So please, as we've gathered here, before we leave, let us be mindful of that principle of cooperation among cooperatives, and we will never be found wanting wherever we find ourselves. Once again, I'm so grateful, senior brother. May God bless you. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, members of the civil movement of Cooperation Africa, fellow cooperators, I bring you all warm fraternal greetings from the Ghana Cooperative Council, the apex body representing all cooperatives in Ghana. On behalf of the board chairman, who is currently in Kumasi attending an equally important meeting, and the entire board, I say Obake, which is the way the people in Accra welcome visitors, Obake, and the accounts will say Akwaba. So you are all welcome to Ghana. It is an honor to join this significant gathering, an assembly of visionaries and dedicated cooperators from across the continent committed to strengthening Africa cooperative and shaping an enabling environment for sustainable growth and shared prosperity. Your presence here demonstrates that cooperation is not just a model, It is a movement capable of transforming societies. Mr. Chairman, despite the remarkable contribution of cooperatives to nation development, it is disheartening that many parts of the continent, including Ghana, cooperatives still do not enjoy the same supportive and enabling environments and private sector institutions benefit from. Yet cooperatives are not new to us. In Ghana, they have existed since 1928. Our first cooperative legislation, the Cooperative Society Ordinance of 1931, was enacted to regulate the cocoa marketing society emerging in the then Gold Coast. This was followed by the 1937 Ordinance for registering secondary societies. Though the cooperative movement faced disruptions, particularly the disbandment of societies in 1960, it was restored in the Cooperative Society Act of 1968, NSCD 252. However, for 57 years, this legislation has remained unchanged. It is now outdated and inadequate for the complex, diversified, and modern cooperative activities we see today. If we are serious about building strong Africa cooperatives, then reforming our legal regulatory framework is not optional. It is an urgent. Thankfully, Mr. Chairman, this is renewed hope. The Minister of Labor, Job and Employment have initiated steps to modernize Ghana cooperative legal framework. The Minister has officially employed the Ghana Cooperative Council to lead this process, engage development partners, mobilize technical and financial support, and coordinate the renew and validate of a new cooperative bill. This process is not by chance. The stars are indeed aligned for meaningful change. The change that will position cooperatives in competitive, sustainable, and prosperous drivers of national and continental development. As we move forward, we welcome collaboration with Cooperation Africa and your team of experts. Together, we can build a legal and policy environment that unlocks the full potential and cooperatives as engine of inclusive growth and economic empowerment. As we engage this annual conference, let us be guided by our team, building strong African cooperatives, promoting an enabling environment for sustainable growth and prosperity. This theme is not just a statement, it is a call for action. A call to strengthen our institution, invest in our people, modernize our regulation, and position cooperatives as central pillars of Africa development. I wish you a fruitful and inspiring dialogue. I pray that our deliberations today will chart a new path for a stronger cooperative movement across Africa to enable us build a better world. May God bless our effort and may God bless cooperatives. In God we trust. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank very much the
speakers who have set the stage for us so that the process of, as it were, active knowledge sharing can begin based on the knowledge that they have already shared with us. May I invite Professor Wanyama? So, I just want to say a few more words about the content of today. And just to say also that I believe there's some slips that are being shared. So we are planning a trip tomorrow afternoon, after the session tomorrow. We're planning a trip to two cooperatives. These have been organized by the Ghana Cooperative Council. Please, we just want to have an idea of how many people are going to come. So if you wish to attend after the session tomorrow, just put your name down and give us back the slip, and then we'll know how we will organize the transport for tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. So, the justification for this conference is based on the fact that cooperatives are businesses owned and democratically managed by their members, which come with many positives for those who cherish collective rather than just individualistic approaches to social and economic organizing. These include self-employment, secure livelihoods, economic democracy, entrepreneurship, skills development, equity, political democracy, and self-reliant development of former colonized peoples. Cooperative research has identified several areas that engender cooperative success. Together they constitute what may be termed an enabling environment. Such an environment impacts cooperative fortunes from inception to their demise, if that should happen. They include such factors as the kinds of cooperatives that are permitted nationally, their ability to self-organize, investment opportunities, access to finance, business management, and education in cooperative principles. Together, these factors indeed constitute what may be termed an enabling environment. So the purpose of this conference is to explore the connection between environment and performance in general, and to identify the main areas where maximal improvements may be made within the African context. I'll just say a few words about cooperatives in the global context, because our speakers will be telling us a great deal about cooperatives within the African context. As we've already said, last 2012 was the International Year of Cooperatives, and this year is also the International Year of Cooperatives. In 2012, it was discovered that there were approximately 2.6 million cooperatives worldwide. The number of people who belong to cooperatives was more than 1 billion. The turnover of cooperatives was substantial, with estimates suggesting that they contribute 2 trillion to the global gross domestic product, mainly in agriculture, finance, and retail. Data from the International Cooperative Alliance indicates that in 2017, there were 2.9 million cooperatives with 1.2 billion members and 279 million employees. So, all told, at that time, in Denmark, consumer cooperatives contribute more than 35% of the domestic market, and in Italy, cooperatives provide 50% of social services. So these are very impressive data that point to us and should energize us into providing cooperatives or enabling cooperatives to provide us with many more goods and services than we currently that allow them to provide. and is able to, one of the few institutions that is able to boast and support its own education institution, a cooperative university. So, around the world we have many different cooperatives, and even, as some would think, in the bastion of the investor-owned business, the United States, there exists more than 35,000 cooperatives, but these, the largest number of them are in the agricultural sector. But I would just want to highlight a couple of the worker cooperatives, which are very common, not least because they are cooperatives that are organized by people from Africa and the Americas. The cooperative I refer to is something called the Cooperative Home Care Associates. These are nurses that provide home care for patients. They travel to their patients' homes and provide home care. And they felt that they had been not fairly treated before 1985 when they were formed, where, for example, if they were traveling between patients, that time was not counted as work time. And holidays were very difficult to come by. So in 1985, a group of African American and Latina women created this organization called Cooperative Home Care Associates, which today is a multi-million-dollar enterprise. It is located in the Bronx in New York. And now they have an African as the mayor of New York. So, I just wanted to give kind of examples in different parts of the world, in Europe, in Sweden, in Japan, in the UK, cooperatives in Africa. We've had a string of them. Most recently we have the model law for cooperatives, but preceding that, a number of countries have adopted what they call social solidarity economy policies, which underpin or can underpin the development of cooperatives. And because we're talking in an African context, I just want to mention amongst these countries that have adopted such policies: Cape Verde, Mali, Cameroon, Djibouti, to need granular level presentations. So that's what we're going to do today. Tomorrow we're going to have a changing environment for cooperatives, where we look at how across the continent how different laws have been made. And then finally we will be having cooperatives as we're speaking for themselves in day 3, when the theme is cooperative self-organizing in Africa. We expect, as we've indicated, that there will be a publication coming out of this, and we also hope that this conference will allow some mobilization around the process of domesticating the model cooperative law. I should say that we have an international audience online. And this by saying that we hope that everybody will have an enjoyable and conference and a very pleasant stay in Ghana. I would now like to turn to the first formal presentation, which is by Professor Wanyama. Professor Wanyama is one of the earliest chroniclers of the history of cooperatives on the African continent, and is, in fact, I believe, in the process of producing another book that will update what has already been done. And so we are really well placed in having the honor of having him here to give us the benefit of his extensive and deep knowledge of the history and the footprint of cooperatives on the African continent. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Maseno University in Kenya, but with a keen interest in cooperative development. And I got interested in this. Of course, my background is in political science, not really focusing on cooperatives per se, but I got interested in cooperatives because I grew up in a cotton growing area in Western Kenya, where cooperatives were marketing cotton. And I got interested from just personal experience, how they were handling farmers, the developments in society and their contribution. And so when I went at postgraduate level, I decided to research on cooperatives. And that's where my interest in this began from. And I've continued to study cooperatives for many years. The last output of my studies came in 2008, which many of you might have read. It is titled Cooperating Out of Poverty, the Renaissance of the African Cooperative Movement. So that is one of, and which may be different to relate to, but I choose to go with the International Cooperative Alliance definition that you are seeing there, being autonomous associations of persons united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs, and aspirations also through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. So that cooperatives are actually enterprises that enable all people who are participating in this to solve their problems. And so the principles have already been highlighted by my earlier speakers, and all of us might be connecting with them, because those principles are what defines or what differentiates a cooperative from other forms of organizations that we may have in our societies. And since I'm focusing on history, I decided by asking the question whether what we have defined existed in traditional society. And my simple answer to that, my straight answer to that is no. What we have defined did not exist that way. However, there were characteristics that are groups in communities that relied on the same principles, some of the principles of cooperatives that we know today. And the people would mobilize each other using reciprocity to help each other out of labor challenges and so on. Those are things that are almost similar to cooperatives. There are mutual aid associations. In some places, there are even burial societies. Like if you go to Southern Africa and Ethiopia again, you will find burial societies existed then. But also, even where there were no kinds of societies, people came together during funerals and helped each other out, bordering again on the same principles that we are talking about. But the modern cooperative that we have defined started a bit later, after the traditional society. And so modern cooperatives that we are talking about today were roughly introduced in Africa around the colonial period. During the colonial period, and in this kind of talk, I'll be paying attention to the factors that influenced the formation and development of cooperatives in Africa. And I may not directly pinpoint all of them, but my story may tell some of these factors that influence the development and how they have developed up to the present. And I would also try to explain the current distribution of cooperatives by type on the continent and numbers. But from the outset, I must start by cautioning about data. The availability of data in Africa is a big problem on cooperatives. We don't know very much on the numbers, the statistics, and so on. But we shall be using a few a few the studies that we have come across to move on and explain this phenomenon. Historically, I want to divide the development of cooperatives in Africa in 4 phases or 4 different eras to bring out the story, to bring out the footprints from around 1990 and moving on